Hi there, and welcome to Let's Slow Down, a podcast for all of you who feel tired and stressed from this overwhelming world. Here we'll have fun, inspiring conversations about living life on our own terms and explore ways to ease the pace of our modern world, because life really is good when you're relaxed enough to be present for it. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Stolting, and I welcome you to this space where I hope to inspire you to slow down, because life is too short to let it go by in a blur. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the show. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who has already purchased my new book, Let's Slow Down: The Art of Simple, Intentional Living. If you haven't yet, it's available on Amazon in both ebook and paperback formats. And if fall feels overwhelming and super busy with back-to-school season and everything that comes with it, I invite you to consider signing up for one of my Slow Down mini sessions. In these sessions, we'll work together to create a personalized plan that fits your life and helps you rediscover the peace and balance you're seeking. That calm is still there beneath all the busyness. For more information, visit letsslowdown.net/work with me. Now, let's jump into today's show. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Slow Down podcast. My guest today is Dr. Heather Penny. She's a leadership coach, trusted advisor, celebrated teacher, and engaging speaker, author, as well as podcast host. She calls herself a regular person who has lived both the stressed out life and the stuck life, eventually figuring out a better way by using her inborn curiosity and love for personal growth. Her passion is bringing in the human element and applying those findings with ways that lead us to living a better life. She's the podcast host and author of The Life You're Made For: Finding Clarity, Confidence, and Courage to Be Fully Alive, as well as Grace Space and The Bracelet. Her mission is to draw out people's natural strength to engage purposefully living their lives and the relationships that they value. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. That's one of my favorite introductions. I really like that. It's not even anything my team wrote, so I'm like, can I have a copy of that?
You sure can. Pulled it from, your book and just all the places that you are. You should be proud of your bio because you're so accomplished and you're adding so much to the world, especially in this space of living more intentionally and
Thank
making
you.
it count.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So we'll talk about the life you made for. I guess we'll
Sure.
get into this, why rest is important. I talk about that on
Yeah.
the podcast all the time. I often talk about my big aha moment, which is like so simple. It's almost embarrassing. But one day, and this was like in my 30s, I realized, I have a choice. Like I
Mm,
actually have a choice. I don't have to live in this grind if it's
mm,
serving me. It's actually making me sick, burnt out, exhausted, ill. And I don't need to stay in this grind if I
mhm,
don't want to. But I'll be honest, for like, I don't know, at least 15 years, that thought had not even occurred to me, let alone like know that that was an option that was available.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it really spoke to me in your book, in The Life You Made For. You say that change is easier than you think, and your
Mm,
pace is up to you. It's not about keeping up with the warp speed that you or others might be running, but rather slowing down and doing less, which I think
mhm,
is like so powerful, so right up my alley. And you go on to ask readers to consider the cost when you push too hard. You lose
mhm,
clarity regarding what you care about, where you're going, you waste time spinning your wheels, and you often burn. And slowing down regularly to reassess where you're going and how best to get there cultivates a life of ever increasing clarity.
mhm,
I just love it because
mm,
that for me was so important, that slowing down piece to
mhm,
get to the clarity. That's still unfolding in my life. It's a work in progress, I think, always. But
mhm.
let's talk about that.
Sure.
Slowing down.
Yeah. Well, I wrote the book for me. I'll just be blunt. You're reading my journal. I'm a high achiever. I probably a fear of disappointment, a recovering codependent, all these things that were pushing me to to strive, almost like a hamster on a wheel, push, 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 push. And when I really stopped to look at what was motivating me, I didn't like it. I didn't like what it was doing to me. I didn't like it with who it was making me into. And so I started doing really my own work. And it was years and years ago. And I've never stopped working on who I am. I call it my counselor used to call it this, like, do your growth work, Heather, do your growth work. I'm like, I am. But more importantly, I realized we have so much more power to become the person we always admire. We just oftentimes let that power go and say, oh, that would be nice to be like her. Or that'd be nice to be accomplished like him. That would be really nice. We don't realize that what that's doing is it's awakening a desire in us that is true to our authentic self. So when I started looking around and seeing these people, I'm like doing what they loved, taking it the pace they loved it, making the resources and the money that they wanted. I'm like, must be nice. And then I realized I was giving away my power. I was giving away all my power. And when I stopped and kind of did some of my own growth work, I started realizing some of the limiting beliefs I had and really what was behind my striving. And it reoriented me so much so that I went back to school, got my PhD, talked and really studied what made people spiral up versus spiral down. And that's the basis of where I started my whole coaching company over 15 years ago. It became, and it still is, very successful, but I didn't do it to be successful. I did it to go find myself. And then in that process, I started realizing, and I talk about this in my book about we all face a crossroads in our life. It's what we do with those crossroads. Do we go steamrolling through? I call it the speedies. Do we pause and really ask good questions? Do we melt down because we're just overwhelmed with choices? So I call it the pausers, the melters, and the speedies. Our goal really is to start being the pausers. And I've been all of them. I've been like, I don't even care. I just got to push through this crossroad. Well, crossroads are an opportunity. And we've heard of the term midlife crisis. I like to call it midlife opportunity, but we have more than just midlife. Usually it becomes a crisis because we have pushed through these crossroads for so long. So I start my 18 book chapter with chapter 1 is restorative rest and giving yourself a permission slip. It's kind of what I had to do for myself. Heather, you get to stop pushing through. I started my vocation in academia. There's no more degrees for you to get. You have your PhD. Just stop. Like, what is happening to you? What is it you need more of? What are you trying to prove to the world? And that's where I had to really slow down at the crossroads, get some key pausers in my life that would support some good question asking. And it moved me out of academia and just that road and put me into a completely different road of opening my own coaching business and supporting people. A lot of people, high achievers, very creative, fast runners, super hungry for life. I mean, this is my ideal client and willing to do the work. And I just go, there's so much more for us if we can take all of our creativity and our energy to actually ask better questions like, how do I get the life that I want? What is it that I really want? Versus, how do I keep up or what's wrong with me? We'll get really good answering those questions. What I want to do is slow people down long enough to ask better questions so that you can use all your creative energy, the clarity, the confidence, the courage that you hold within you. You don't have to borrow from anyone else. You have it within you. You just got to slow down long enough. So that's why I start the whole book with restorative rest. And at the end of that chapter, it's giving yourself that permission slip to say, I give you permission to rest.
I love that. And a couple things there. You said, ask yourself those questions. Think about what do I
Yeah.
want? And I think that that is another one that seems like a
Hmm.
simple question on the
Yeah.
surface, but it's a hard question. And
Really hard. Hmm.
the longer that we're like plowing through and just
Hmm.
doing the next thing we think we're supposed to do over and over and burning ourselves out, the harder that question is to answer,
Yes.
I think.
Well, and this is where I would say start with envy and jealousy. There's a gift to that. And I'll tell you what I mean more by that. None of us want to be envious or jealous of people. In fact, it makes us ugly people. We all agree on that, I know. But that moment you have some kind of jealousy of someone, if you can stay curious with yourself and ask yourself, why am I jealous? It's probably because it's starting to tap into something that you want. And I would say leverage it. Don't try and say, I don't want to be a jealous person. I want to say, no, no, no. Use your jealousy to shift it into, oh, not a shame question of stop being jealous, but move it into a curious question that says, hey, Head, why are you jealous of that person? And I remember it was probably 20 years ago. I was really jealous of this guy who's this amazing author and speaker. And I'm like, I literally said out loud, why does he get to do that? You know what I mean? And that's when I realized, "Oh, Heather, you've got some work to do. You've got some work to do." And without shaming myself and saying, "Oh, stop being jealous of him, just be happy." It was more of saying, "Hey, why are you having a hard time with his success?" It's because I had books in me. I wanted to speak and teach and write. And I was pushing myself to just fit into a box and fit in a career that it was no longer bringing me fulfillment. And I was too scared to take that, not only take that leap of faith, but to really slow down long enough to ask better questions. And so that for me was the most courageous thing for someone who likes to achieve and move forward in life. One of the most courageous things I can do is to slow down and say, I'm not being left behind. This is the most important work I can do. This is how I get to love myself. And in there, I'll access my clarity, my confidence, and my courage. And slowing down doesn't mean just sitting there meditating. It's learning how to go jump on your tire swing. It's learning how to play again. It's learning how to engage your creativity again. And out of that, the clarity, the confidence, the courage lives in much more abundance. So we learn how to access it more in the slowing down. So that's why I go on about restorative rest, because I go, listen, you're not going to go anywhere if we try and start with courage or confidence. I want to say, let's start with rest. And that's the most important thing because that's where we start accessing our clarity. Once you access your clarity through rest, you begin to get the answers and the solutions you need. And that's where I kind of coach people through it. I'm like, in that clarity, you start asking better questions. You start getting better people around you. You start recognizing what's making you happy and what's making you sad, what you don't want to be a part of anymore, what you're ready to say no to. I mean, these are all things that happen when we sit down and just rest a little bit more and give ourselves that restorative rest, not just 8 hours of sleep every night, but restorative rest, mind, body, heart, spirit. You're feeding your soul so that you can get the inner wisdom that you really long for.
Rest can be productive, and I think our busy world
Yeah.
forgets that.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Well said.
So, and you just spoke to the restorative rest. It's
Hmm.
different than like obviously there is certainly a time and a place and a need, I would say,
Hmm.
to like vegging out on a couch and putting a movie on and just
Yeah.
checking out for 2 hours. We all need that at times. But that's not the kind of rest that you're speaking to. So, can you talk to us more? Because that really made me stop and think. And,
Yeah.
a lot of times, and I know these phones are like time suckers. We just
Hmm.
lose hours on these things. And so that's a big one. People think, oh, we're taking a little break. I'm just going to like look on Instagram for 5 minutes and they lose an hour.
Hmm.
And they're kind of like their brain is shot after that. It's not getting
Yeah.
that rest.
Yeah.
It's not productive. So, what are some of your favorite ways to really have restorative rest that you see benefit you and some of your
Yeah.
clients?
Well, for our listeners, I'll just briefly mention the allegory because this has helped my clients so much is using a story. And it's about this little girl who puts on a bracelet. She's given a bracelet early on in life and it's beautiful. It makes her feel loved and cherished. But what it does is as she gets over the years, she gets more and more bracelets and go all the way up to her shoulders. And she stops being able to go on her tire swing, which gave her so much joy. It's a very simple story, but it is what my clients go, "Oh, that's what you mean by restorative rest." I'm like, "Yeah, find your tire swing." And you've lost it. And in the process, you see how what happens to her, and she loses her or when she stops visiting her tire swing that gave her so much joy, and she's just trying to balance her bracelets. Bracelets are neither good nor bad. It's part of adulting. We've all got bracelets. It's just we forget that we have the power of who we're gonna receive bracelets from, how many bracelets we're gonna wear, which ones we need to remove and we've outgrown. We don't even slow down to ask that kind of questions. So now when clients jump on the line with me, they'll be like, I need to balance my bracelets today. I need help finding my tire swing. You know what? I was lying under the stars and I heard the voice on the wind reminding me about my bracelets. I'm like, great. What'd the voice tell you? And is the voice coming from within? Is it coming from a higher power? I don't know. I don't care. It's your clarity. Where are you getting your clarity? And it's all around us if we slow down and really listen. So I guess I want to give that context first, and then I'll give a personal example. And let me put it in a concrete, because this is the teacher in me. I'll put it in a concrete way. I call it the Thrive Plan. Something daily, around an hour, something weekly, around 2 to 4 hours, something monthly, around half a day, and then something annually. And that should be 2 or 3 days away. This helped me structure it because as someone who was an overachiever and liked to push hard and liked to excel, I was like, why am I getting burned out? I don't understand this. I had to create this kind of rhythm. So again, you read my book and you're going to read my journal pretty much. It's what I had to create for me to remember my tire swing. So I had to schedule in my tire swing on a daily basis. So something I do daily is like how I start my morning. Sometimes I need movement and I'm out there taking a walk. Sometimes I need to read something, but I've noticed it's something I really need every morning is some sort of beauty in my life and that engages me. And I'm listening to what my whole person needs, mind, body, heart, spirit. And there's some mornings where I just want to get moving. But I'm realizing if I just move every single morning and like jump into, go into running or jump into the gym or do a class, I start losing my soul if I do that every single morning. So I have to then have some quiet mornings where I have reflective moments. So it's that hour that I'm really watching for. And that's just something I do daily. My weekly is something like I'm just taking time off for myself. I may visit a bookstore. I might go lie down and read one of my favorite books, watch something I've been wanting to catch up on, listen to a podcast and take a walk. Something like this. It's more of that 2 to 4 hours. And then monthly is like a half day or a full day. I just need a full day to myself. Annual is just pulling away. For several days, I call me retreats. So that kind of helps you with a little bit of a structure. Here's the thing that gets hard, and this is where I want to just give so much compassion and comfort to all our listeners. We want to make a formula and we want it to work every single time. Man, that morning I got up and I journaled and I had so much enlightenment and I was amazing. The angels were singing, the stars were aligned, and I had my business plan. I knew what I wanted. We have those mornings. There's other mornings where you're trying to put one foot in front of the other. And so, what I want to offer so much compassion and grace to all of our listeners is it's okay. Your body and your soul and your spirit and your mind, they're all trying to tell you what you need. If we can stay curious, that's where we get our clarity of what our tire swing needs to look like, either today in this moment or for this season of life. I'm launching my kids into college and I'm moving into empty nest. I'm finding much larger periods of time. I can pick up my painting again. I can do that. When I had toddlers, I was lucky if I could go to the bathroom by myself. So you've got
Yep.
all these different seasons in your life that I want to say, please don't hear what I say and go, oh, it must be nice. Recognize where you're at in your own season in life and say, I know where I can carve out time for just me to go find my tire swing. Because the moment we give into that false belief of I can't do it, that's when we lose our clarity.
And it's so important to kind of like the comparison piece. You can't, it's not apples to apples because you don't know what is
Yeah.
behind the scenes for them. And yeah,
Right.
do they have the newborn who's waking up every three
Yeah.
hours? Like their level of functioning is going to be very different from the person who gets a full night of sleep. And there's
Right.
just so many things that we really have to make it work for us. And like you said, it's not always a one size fits all, even for us from day to day.
Right. Right. And there's sometimes in your life where you have more resources, time and money and availability, all that stuff. And there's other times you have very limited resources. And had both. I would just encourage people, don't let any of that stop you. If you can start really asking, hey, how many bracelets am I balancing now? Which ones do I want to get rid of? And when's the last time I visited my tire swing? And by the way, what is my tire swing?
Yeah.
I tell people, go back in your childhood, see what you love. I remember just loving lying and reading for hours. Well, one of the tire swings I lost in my early motherhood was novels. I love stories, but being a responsible parent, I'm reading all these parenting books. I'm telling you, coming nap time, you think I want to read about parenting? No, I want to get lost in a story. But I was feeling way too responsible. And then I'm wondering, why am I burned out around 3 p.m. in the afternoon? I'm like, oh my gosh, very simple tweak when I stopped and really asked a better question. It wasn't like, how do I be a better parent? How do I keep up? These are shame based questions. I begin to ask a more curious, loving question that says, how do I enjoy parenting in a whole new way? You know what? When they go down for a nap, I'm going to sit amongst the laundry and the dishes and everything else, and I'm going to make sure I engage in a novel and a good story that I love for my 1 hour. Learning how to work with your parameters and your seasons versus letting that become an excuse to be victimized by your own life is where the mind shift happens.
That's that choice, right? It's
Yeah.
choosing to think a little differently, and
Mhm.
I love that example that you just gave, and if you take that hour instead of cleaning up the house and, like, I'm speaking to myself too, because
Yeah.
there's so many evenings that I've done that after the kids are
Yeah.
finally everybody's sleeping, and then I start, like, doing all, like, the catching up, and it
Right.
really should be the time for me just to have a little bit of time to give myself
Yeah.
play on my tire swing and I'll feel better and I'll be able to wake up refreshed and do those tasks
Yeah.
that needed to be done better. So like you can return
Yeah.
after you get your hour of reading and you feel more reinvigorated and you had some some downtime and some rest. And you can all of a sudden tackle those things that might have taken you forever before, tackle them much quicker because you're just in a better, like you said, I guess you have that clear
Oh,
head
yeah.
and you're able to be efficient.
Not only that, your life will start growing. So that was back in my 30s. I'm 54 now. Let me just tell you where I'm at now. You know, yes, my kids are in college. I'm empty nest. My company's thriving. I'm working all over the world. I'm teaching, I'm writing, I'm speaking. I still have to remember my tire swing. I can feel the burnout coming, but it's something I started back as an early mother going, I'm either going to hate my life here if I don't start learning how to engage this better. That still applies. And I still have the same things haunt me. Now it's just like I've learned a little bit more of developing that muscle. So here I am now where my husband says to me, hey, our son is studying abroad in Switzerland. Can we take a month off? He's another consultant. Can we take a month off and go to Europe? And I'm like, what? Am I allowed? Is kind of what I thought. I had to write a permission slip to myself. And I'm like, am I allowed? Do I have the time? Do we have the money? I mean, all these questions that responsible people ask. And I'm like, the answer is yes, 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 and yes. So what's stopping me? My fear that maybe I'm wrong, my fear that maybe I'm gonna miss something, my fear that, I'm allowed no, this is where now I'm at in my life. So now my tire swing is very different, and I have to let that grow with my life. Way back when, it was like, I get a 1-hour nap time. Neither one is bad or good, it's just allowing yourself to be where you're at in your life and affirming that, and once you develop it there, now I'm in this space where my success is linked to so much of learning how to find those tire swings and balance those bracelets, and I still get off. I'll still say, "Oop, I got too many bracelets going on." I mean, it's the shadow side of success, but learning how to stop it and even invite people in my life that help me ask those questions. Because not only that, it's really easy to manage it with just, a couple friends or just a smaller life, but now with a huge company and a team and all this other stuff, are you kidding? Of course I'm gonna get influenced to carry all these bracelets and stop visiting my
Mm.
tire swings, and I give in a lot, but I still hold that idealism right there that goes, "Wait a minute, you're getting burned out, that's on you." That's the gentle conversation you wanna have on yourself. We are all in control of our burnout more than we realize. And I don't do it with shame, I just say, "Oh, you're starting to feel burned out." Well, it's your own company, like, you got no one to blame but yourself now. Like, "Sweetie," and I try and call myself nice names, "Sweetie, we're gonna sit down and revisit this because we've gotten a little carried away, haven't we? And you stopped really visiting your tire swing, but now you're trying to make everybody happy. Like, what's your tire swing again? And how are you gonna embrace some of the disappointment that you're gonna offer people because you're saying no?" That only comes from slowing down and find that tire swing again. So I say this too, I'm like, if you want your life to get bigger and to grow, you can do that. These are the practices we want to put in place. If you're really happy with the life of where you're at, there's nothing wrong with that either. Stay where you're at and enjoy that. But I want everybody to enjoy the space and the desire that they have in their heart to be able to be not only the person they want to be, but to have the life that they're made for.
I love that. And you had mentioned that just made me think of you were talking about since people can spiral down, they can also spiral up. And I had never really heard it terms like coined that way before because I
Yeah.
realized usually we talk about spiraling, like spiraling down, spiraling out of control. It has a very negative connotation. It's usually like, okay, totally burnt out, totally lost it. But yeah, if you can go that direction, then we can go the other direction and we can spiral up. And you said that in spiraling up, you ended up focusing on two areas emotional well being, which I think we're very
Mhm.
much speaking to right now with the rest
Yeah.
and the tire swing. And then you mentioned career fulfillment. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. This is where my dissertation kind of kicked in and I started going back. I had a choice, talk about crossroad. I had a choice to go get I had to advance in my field anyway as a professor in a university. And I was like, I can go get a doctorate that they all want me to get, or I can actually go get a doctorate I want to get. And I'm telling you, it was very hard because one got could be financed and one I had to figure out how to pay for myself. And it meant shifting careers. So for me, that was a huge leap of faith. I just said, I'm going to go get a PhD in human services and focus on what I want to focus on, which is emotional well really how do people learn and grow was really what I wanted to focus on. And that I realized the only clarity I had was I love teaching. I'm just tired of teaching on the 3 R's and teaching on the curriculum that K-12 or in the university system wants me to teach on. I think I've got content inside me I want to teach on. And I think it's time for me to start exploring that. that was my motivation behind that, moving into that new PhD. And in that process, what I got to do is also say, what do I want to study? I want to study how people learn and grow. When I started reading all the research, that's what all the research is on. How everybody's depressed, anxious, and sad. I mean, it was just so like research is negative, usually negative bent. And I realized this is gonna bum me out, and I've dealt with my own journey of depression, anxiety, and, I have a daughter, and I was like, "This is really hard to keep reading. I want something that's hopeful, and I want the research to show it." So I started saying, "You know what? I'm gonna ask a new question." We've gotten so much clarity on why we spiral down as a society. In fact, particularly in North America, we're calling it a social epidemic, and we know this. I don't need more research to tell me this. And the psychotropic meds that are going up, daily. Again, nothing against that. We need what we need, but what is happening to our society and why are we not having better conversations around this? That's where I wanted my research to focus on. So I started using this whole concept of if we can spiral down, logic tells me we can spiral up. We've gotten a lot of information on spiraling down and even just how to like plateau again, but we didn't have very much conversations around how do we start building resiliency and beginning to learn how to spiral up. So I thought, I'm going to just start asking people. So my whole qualitative research was on I'm going to ask all these women because it was mainly female focus, but I found out it was a human dilemma. So now I work with men and women. So I'm like, doesn't matter, it just goes across the genders. But I started with groups of women between the ages of 30 and 50. And I said, hey, as you look back in your 20s, when you transition from school to work, did you spiral up or spiral down? Tell me how that was. And I started listening to how they were spiraling up. And that's where I pulled out 4 areas. The women that were beginning to spiral up, and all of them had difficult transitions because that's what the research was saying. We're losing our women around the 20s when they're leaving school to work and they're losing, we don't know why. It just kept saying more research is needed. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about why we're losing them. I want to start talking about the ones that figured out how to not be lost, right? Like I want to know what they did. So when I interviewed all of them, I was listening to it and I pulled out 4 main areas. The ones that were learning how to spiral up in areas of career fulfillment and emotional well being, they begin to ask 4 different questions. So I call them the 4 tires, and it is in my book. I think
Yeah.
it's in the confidence section, but it's 4 tires. And I break down the research more so you can read more about it behind it. And you can look at my dissertation if any of you guys want to geek out on it. But, you and my mom have only read it. Couldn't even get my husband to read it. Dissertations are so dry, but I was trying to take the research and put it in a format, and so that's why I call them the 4 tires, but it was the women that were saying, "You know what? I need fulfillment. What fulfills me?" So I call these the first 2 tires, the front 2 tires. Fulfillment, and I need to understand what affirms me. What's my purpose in life? Once they started asking those questions, and I call those the tires of being, and then the back 2 tires are the tires of doing. The back 2 tires are about growth and achievement. So if you picture your car that you're driving in life, this helps you take responsibility for your car. You only need 1 tire that's flat. And sometimes some of us are
Yeah.
trying to drive around on 1 flat tire, some of it's all 4 tires, but as a coach, I'm checking all 4 of these tires. Where do you need more air in this one? Where's this one kinda gone flat on you? How long have you been stuck on the side of the road, and which tire do you think it is? Once we start asking people a new level of question, not, "Hey, what's wrong with you? What's making you depressed or sad or stuck?" They don't understand that, and we can spiral down actually in that question asking. When I started asking people as a coach, "What brings you fulfillment?" What am I doing is I'm checking that fulfillment tire. When they start telling me what brings them fulfillment, I'm like, "Are you getting that fulfillment in your life now?" Well, of course, the answer is no, I'm not. I'm like, "How do you think you can get it?" They're like, "I think I need to quit my job," or "I think I need to get out of this relationship," or "I think I need," they know. But now we're focusing on that fulfillment tire. We're talking about affirmation, and then we're talking about where do you want to grow? Where do you want to achieve? Once we begin to focus on these 4 tires, it's putting all your own energy, your own clarity, confidence, and courage you hold within you, and you're putting it toward these 4 tires, and you actually will start getting back on the road and going to where you want to go in life.
It makes sense. The car's a perfect image because
Yeah.
1 tire and you're pulling over. You're not really going anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
or if you do, you're gonna break the whole car.
Right, and you're right, and of course, my high achievers, myself, all my fingers pointing back, I was like, "Who cares about your fulfillment and affirmation? You're growing and achieving. Get back on the road, Heather." That's what we get
Yeah.
mean to ourselves, right? Because we're more comfortable maybe in the doing. And then I always like to say, I don't want the being and the doing to be at war with people, with each other. We have these conversations, it's all about being, it's all about doing. And I go, folks, it's both. We need
Yeah.
both for full fulfillment in our life, it's because we're holistic. We need to be being and doing. So I'm not gonna tell you, "Hey, well, you just need to be more. You need to just do more." I don't know what you need. What I wanna do is give you all the information to check your own 4 tires. The goal is that you should be able to do this on your own. I shouldn't say should be able to do it. We all need guides, but the goal is eventually you learn these new tools within you to start checking your 4 tires. Like, no one's ever told us that before. Well, this came out of research when I started realizing, "Oh, you guys instinctively learned how to start checking your 4 tires." And then I share numerous examples of that and stories about that in my book.
Really interesting. And it makes you think. And let's speak a little bit more to those other two C's. I know we talked about the clarity a lot, and we're starting to get into that confidence. And how about the courage piece?
Yeah. Courage, the metaphor I use in the book, and I use this with my clients too. I'm like, clarity is about knowing, confidence is about checking your beliefs. It's about whatever you believe, kind of your mindset. Courage is all about taking action. And
And I think that's the hardest part sometimes because we can get stuck in our heads. Like a lot of us, yep, yeah, I want to do this. That's what I believe. I've read a lot about it. I buy into it all 100%. But then taking that step to do it is so hard and scary a lot of times.
it is. And that's kind of where we need a guide to come in. I hire so many people, coaches, counselors, because I'm like, the metaphor I use in the book is parachuting, and you're going out to do a jump and you're so excited about it. You got the clarity and the confidence. That means the plane and the parachute, those are metaphors for what you have. You've got all you need, but you're clinging to the side of the plane and you can't jump because you don't have the courage. And the plane lands and you feel that terrible, sick feeling in your stomach that says, I had the plane and the backpack. I had ready, or the chute. I had everything ready to go, and I clung to the side of the plane. And we've all done that. So I always keep saying, you hear me say this throughout the conversation so much. No shame. Stay curious with yourself. Maybe you're clinging to the side of it because you don't have the right jump site. Maybe your chute is malfunctioning. Maybe you don't trust that pilot. There's so many other things that you want to take a gentle, careful look at. And then there's also the other option of maybe everything was completely ready to go and you just didn't do it. That's now where we have to have that really hard look in the mirror in ourselves and say, and I've said this to clients, you've got all the clarity you need, you've got all the confidence you need. You just got to jump. You got to take action. And a lot of times people can't do it or won't do it unless they have a buddy in their corner. I know there were so many times, even to start my own coaching company, I hired a coach to be my buddy basically and say, I'm getting ready to do this. Are you in my corner? Okay, I'll show up every week just to hear that I can do this because I was taking a huge risk. Graduating with my PhD, having all these loads, not being in the academic arena, figuring out how to pay for all myself. I'm like, are you kidding? Never starting my own company. I mean, there were so many things that was making me jump. I needed a buddy. And he just kept showing up saying, yep, you got this. You got this. Helping me deal with the false beliefs that were wanting me to cling to the side of the plane, helping me make context of any of the failures that I'd had, all this stuff. This is where I want to encourage people. Don't be afraid to reach out. Friends, close circles can help and support. But if you really want to take it to that next level, I always recommend professionals because professionals are going to help you keep the boundaries there. They're going to help you jump. I don't let people get away with not jumping, but I'm nice about it. One of my biggest compliments I got the other day was she said to me, boy, you say things so directly, but you're so nice. I go, high praise. Thank you. Because that means I'm telling you the truth, but you're not feeling shame. That's what I want people to feel like. You're going to get the truth from me, but you're not going to feel shame about it. So the courage piece is really that powerful place of jumping. And to your point, Anne Marie, there's some people I've worked on both sides where I'm like, whoa, 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 settle down. You don't even have a parachute on. Do not jump. Do not jump. That's my job too. I'm like, you take 5 steps back, land that plane. In fact, who's flying that plane? So I see it on both sides. And then you're on the side that's like, I'm clinging to the side. I'm like, I know. And I've been both sides. I'm a little bit more like you, where I'm a little bit more risk adverse, especially with the family and everything else. I've got all these faces running through my mind of like people I've got to support and all these different things that are counting on me. But I also feel like, you know what? I need sometimes that support to just help me jump. But I see both sides of the courage coin, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. And honestly, it helps to talk to someone who's been on both sides and to
Yeah.
hear from their experiences. And you've seen it in your
Yeah.
own life and then with people that you work with.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it humanizes things because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, this is like the human element. Because on paper,
Right.
everything might be perfect, but maybe your heart's just not ready or your
Yeah.
head's not ready or what, like you said, whatever it is, the environment's
Yeah.
not right. So
Yeah.
what I think is is really tough sometimes is like you want to listen, slow down, get that clarity and listen to that voice, like hear your
Mhm,
intuition, try to
mhm,
honor that. And sometimes you're too scared to kind of take that next step with the courage piece. So sometimes I'm like, is it that I'm just scared or is it that,
mhm,
I'm being kind of pushed in a direction that maybe isn't right for me? I think it can get
mhm.
muddy. So I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned having the coach.
Yeah, I think the coach helps you hang on to your intuition. I when I started whispering, I think I want to do coaching, but I want to create my own curriculum. I had to whisper it to somebody, and particularly someone who was successful in the field. It meant a lot to me when he said, "Yeah, I think you'd be great. How can I support you?" I was like, "What?" Because it's vulnerable. So if you're making these big changes to get someone that's professional advice that you trust and who isn't gonna let you jump prematurely or is going to tell you, "You gotta jump, man." Like, the plane has been circling the jump zone too many times. Like, if you don't jump now, there's you're gonna regret it. So you're staying in those conversations with someone because we're taking these big significant risks to go after the life you're made for. And I think that's where I always give so much respect to this journey. If it were easy, we'd all be doing it. There's so many different unique challenges that all of us face. And I feel like I've heard them all, to be honest, in the work that I've done. But I also feel like I think I've experienced most of them, if not all of them. That has surprised me. So there's so much universality in the human experience when we're all trying to fight for the life we're made for. And I do use the word fight because, like I said, if it were easy, we'd all be doing it. We would, but we don't drift into it. We kind of have to sometimes contend for it. And I know there's pivotal moments where all of us, those of you who are listening, there's been pivotal moments in your life when you knew this is my moment and you took it and you went for it. And it maybe didn't turn out exactly like you wanted, or it was even better than you thought, or it was a big flop. All I wanna say is I'm so proud of you for going for it. I'm just so proud of you for going for it. And that's what I have to tell myself when I've done big flops too. I'm like, "I'm so proud of you for going for it. Just regroup now. Circle back up with some key people in your life that are gonna support you and not gonna let you spiral into shame, but it's gonna give you context for, you might have jumped prematurely, or oops, you had the wrong pilot there. Oops, you need these people that are gonna help honor you for taking that leap, and so I just commend anyone who just dares to get in the plane and put on a parachute and try. And here's me, I've never even done parachuting, but I love the example.
It's a great example. Maybe you should add it to the list. Heather, you're so inspiring. You really are. I really love the context that you share this information and with the stories and just all of your life experience because it does make it a lot easier to relate to and to
Mhm.
understand and to kind of picture it in our own lives. So it's just really a very inspiring conversation.
Oh, thanks, Anne
And
Marie.
yeah, as we wrap up, what is one of your favorite ways to slow down right now?
My favorite way is probably my morning time. I'm realizing it's where I'm freshest. I always thought I was an evening person when I had kids. Okay. Man, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. They were up around 5 or 6 every morning. I was like, I could be a grumpy mom or I could figure out how to be a morning person. So we kind of made that transition as a mother. I've got 2 kids and they're both in college now, like I said. But I think learning how to enjoy my mornings became such a gift to me. And even how I create my schedule around, I realize I'm not super as fresh on Monday mornings as I'd like to be for my work, but I'm really more introspective and sometimes recovering a little bit from the weekend, or I need a little bit more space on a Monday morning. So I think the Monday mornings I'm a little bit more careful of. And then I notice my energy is super high with my work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I book a lot of clients there and I love it. But I think how I start my day is everything. And if I can get out in beauty and nature, it's really good. And then if I can wind down, I do a lot of intense conversations all day long. So learning how to kind of cut it off around 3, I get up from my desk and I once I leave my desk, I'm done. I rarely go back to it. That's been super important for me to keep that boundary there because I keep my office out of my home, which is what I want to do. I want to keep my life kind of compact that way. So I have to be really careful with my boundaries and I have to watch what it's doing to the people I live with. So I'll watch them sometimes. And if they're giving me feedback, I'm a little either withdrawn or grumpy or irritable. It's usually because I'm pushing too hard. So I just say, nope, that's on me. I need to put more time in my schedule, or giving myself a little bit more time in the morning. or just a little bit more relaxed time as I wind down after working with clients.
Such great advice. I hope that you fit lots of that in the coming week.
Thank you.
I'm going to link your book, podcast, and everything in the show notes today so that everybody can connect with you and, definitely check these books out. They're really great and they make you think. So
Oh,
thank you so
good.
much for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Such a pleasure. I'm cheering all of you on.
I hope you've enjoyed our journey together. Please take a moment to rate and review the show. It really helps us grow and reach others looking to slow down too. Wishing you simplicity and ease in your world, and I'll see you back here next week.